What's it like to be a loser? My son-in-law laughed across the dinner table, his wine glass raised high. Everyone laughed with him, everyone except me. They thought I would sit there in silence, too old to matter, too weak to defend myself. But what they didn't know was that the man they mocked was about to become their boss. Before we dive into this story of betrayal and justice, make sure you subscribe to the channel and leave a comment below. Have you ever been underestimated by your own family? For most of my life, I was an engineer. Not glamorous, not flashy, but honest work. I designed bridges, roads, and buildings that still stand today. 40 years of long nights, deadlines, and sacrifices that meant missed birthdays, missed vacations, but a secure life for my wife Caroline and our daughter Lily. Lily was always the joy of my life, bright, ambitious, with a smile that could erase even the heaviest burdens. When she met Sheldon, her future husband, I tried to be supportive. He was charming, quick with words, ambitious in sales. But beneath that charm, I sensed something else: arrogance, a hunger for money and status that often outweighed respect. Still, Lily loved him, and so I bit my tongue, offering support where I could. I helped them with down payments, covered bills when they fell short, even paid for my granddaughter Emma's private school tuition. I told myself, this is family, and family helps each other. But lately, something had shifted. The more success Sheldon tasted, the more dismissive he became. He started joking about my retirement, belittling my work, calling me old-fashioned. Caroline, my daughter, would defend me, but Sheldon's words always carried weight at the table. That night, Caroline hosted a dinner to celebrate Sheldon's promotion. A regional sales manager now, with a six-figure salary he never failed to mention. The dining room was glowing with candlelight, wine flowing, silverware polished. Emma sat beside me, proud to share that I had built her a treehouse the past summer. But Sheldon leaned back, smirking. "That's sweet," he said, patting her head like she was a pet. "But real men don't waste time on treehouses. Real men provide for their families, not coast on retirement while others carry the weight." The laughter at the table was sharp, cruel. My fork trembled in my hand. I swallowed my anger, but my chest burned. My own son-in-law at my daughter's table, mocking me in front of family. And then, he delivered the line that sliced deeper than any other. "Old men shouldn't own businesses. They don't understand the modern world." Old men shouldn't own businesses. They don't understand the modern world. They should just step aside and let the younger generation lead. Emma's little hands gripped mine under the table. Caroline tried to change the subject, but the damage was done. Everyone was looking at me, waiting. I smiled, slowly, deliberately, and in a calm voice that silenced the laughter, I asked Sheldon one question. "How does it feel knowing that this old man you just mocked is the one who's been paying your bills for the last 15 years? The room froze. Sheldon's smirk faltered. Wine glasses stilled. Caroline's eyes widened. He thought it was just a jab, an old man finally speaking out. But deep inside, I was already planning my next move. What Sheldon didn't know was that I had quietly bought controlling shares in the very company that had just promoted him. The company he thought he owned. And soon, very soon, he would realize exactly who his new boss was. The color drained from Sheldon's face as I leaned back in my chair, smiling faintly. I had just declared war at my own daughter's dinner table, and no one yet understood how far I was willing to go. After that dinner, the atmosphere in my daughter's home was never the same. Sheldon avoided eye contact with me the rest of the night, nursing his wine glass like it held answers. Caroline fussed over the dishes, pretending she hadn't just watched her husband humiliate her father. I left early, offering polite goodbyes, but my heart was pounding with something far stronger than anger. It was resolve. You see, for years I had listened to Sheldon boast about his career, how he was climbing the ladder in his sales firm, how he'd become indispensable. You see, for years I had listened to Sheldon boast about his career, how he was climbing the ladder in his sales firm, how he'd become indispensable. What he didn't know was that the firm he worked for, Prescott and Kane, had been struggling quietly. Investors were pulling out, management was in shambles, and the board had been seeking a stabilizing hand. That's where I came in. With my retirement savings, my careful investments, and the respect I still carried in the business community, I'd been approached months earlier. And so piece by piece, I'd bought controlling shares. Quietly, discreetly, no announcements, no fanfare. Which meant that on paper, Sheldon's big promotion was nothing more than a pawn being moved around a board I now owned. But I hadn't told anyone, not even Caroline. 2 weeks later, Sheldon strutted into Sunday dinner like a king returning to his castle. He wore a new watch, Italian leather shoes, and that smug smile he reserved for family gatherings. "So, Dad," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm as he carved into the roast, "how's retirement treating you? Must be nice. No deadlines, no responsibilities, just waiting around." The table chuckled nervously. Caroline shot him a warning look. But Sheldon didn't stop. "You know, sometimes I wonder how the older generation even managed business at all." The table chuckled nervously. Caroline shot him a warning look. But Sheldon didn't stop. "You know, sometimes I wonder how the older generation even managed business at all. Everything's digital now, fast, efficient. Not like the old days with paper and pencils." He blinked. "The board, obviously. Prescott and Kane." "Why?" I leaned back, folding my hands. "Then I suppose you'll be very interested in tomorrow morning's board meeting." Caroline frowned. "Board meeting? Dad, what are you?" I smiled faintly, choosing silence. Let the truth arrive on its own. Invisible stakes. That night, Sheldon drank heavily, bragging about his plans for the company. He talked about cutting costs, replacing older staff with fresh talent, and launching flashy campaigns that would put his name in industry magazines. Caroline tried to rein him in, reminding him of the people who depended on those jobs. But Sheldon brushed her off. "Old men shouldn't own businesses," he repeated, smirking at me across the table. "They just get in the way of progress." What he didn't know was that by morning, the very old man he was mocking would be sitting at the head of the boardroom table as his new boss. Caroline tried to rein him in, reminding him of the people who depended on those jobs. But Sheldon brushed her off. "Old men shouldn't own businesses," he repeated, smirking at me across the table. "They just get in the way of progress." What he didn't know was that by morning, the very old man he was mocking would be sitting at the head of the boardroom table as his new boss. As I rose from the dinner table, Emma slipped her tiny hand into mine. "Grandpa," she whispered, "don't let him be mean to you." I kissed her forehead and whispered back, "Sweetheart, tomorrow, the whole world is going to change." The next morning, Sheldon would walk into the boardroom full of arrogance and certainty, only to find me already there, waiting for him. The next morning, the air outside Prescott and Kane's headquarters was crisp, carrying that faint bite of winter. I walked into the glass building in my old Navy suit, the one Caroline used to call my battle armor. Every step I took echoed with the weight of decades of experience and a hidden satisfaction. "Sheldon," I said, my voice steady, "you're in my seat." Confusion flickered across his face. What are you talking about? This is the head seat, reserved for the acting director." One of the board members cleared his throat. "Mr. Weequuk, Mr. Tumejtori, in the Toldum Peg, for when Flickdeck, this had Mr. Weequuk, Titalad Perding bow to your seat. But a you say fact to Pili Yopak, Tifol the Toldum Peg bow to your seat. This had Mr. Weequuk, Titalad Perding bow to your seat. This had Mr. Weequuk, Titalad Perding bow to your seat. This had Mr. Weequuk, Titalad Perding bow to your seat. This had Mr. Weequuk, Titalad Perding bow to your seat. This had Mr. Weequuk. "Thompson, we didn't want to spoil the surprise. But as of this morning, your father-in-law is not just an investor. He's the new chairman." The color drained from Sheldon's face. His laugh came out brittle. "You're joking. This has to be a mistake." I laid a thick folder on the polished table. Inside were signed documents, sealed approvals, and the undeniable proof of my controlling shares. "No mistake, Sheldon. Every decision you've made, every dollar you've spent, every word you've spoken in this company comes under my authority now." For the first time, the man who mocked me had no words. He sputtered, trying to recover. "This isn't fair. You can't just waltz in here and take over. I earned my promotion." I leaned forward, my voice low but cutting. "You didn't earn it, Sheldon. You rode on the backs of others. You spent recklessly, ignored employees, and laughed at the very people who built the foundation you stand on, including me." The room was so quiet you could hear the hum of the air conditioner. The color drained from Sheldon's face. His laugh came out brittle. "You're joking. This has to be a mistake." I laid a thick folder on the polished table. Inside were signed documents, sealed approvals, and the undeniable proof of my controlling shares. "No mistake, Sheldon. Every decision you've made, every dollar you've spent, every word you've spoken in this company comes under my authority now." For the first time, the man who mocked me had no words. He sputtered, trying to recover. Sheldon's voice grew hoarse as he protested, but it was useless. His power, his pride, his so-called authority, all gone in the span of an hour. And yet, as I watched him slump in his chair, I felt no triumph. Not yet, because I knew this humiliation was only the beginning. The room was so quiet you could hear the hum of the air conditioner. Sheldon tried to rally. "I'll resign. I'll go to a competitor." One of the directors shook his head. "Your contract prevents that for 2 years, Sheldon. You knew this. This isn't over, old man. You think you've won? You've just started a war you can't finish." I adjusted my tie, calm and unshaken. "No, Sheldon. The war ended the moment you underestimated me." But deep down I knew his fight wasn't over. He'd take this battle home. And Caroline, she would be caught in the middle. The boardroom victory should have felt sweet. But when I walked out into the chilly parking lot, I felt only the weight of what was coming next. Sheldon wasn't the kind of man to lick his wounds quietly. His pride was too big, his arrogance too fragile. And I was right. That evening, Caroline called me. Her voice was tight, almost trembling. "Dad." Sheldon came home furious. "He said you embarrassed him in front of the entire board. Is it true? Are you really his boss now?" The pause in her voice told me she wasn't angry. She was afraid. "Yes, sweetheart," I said gently. "It's true. I own controlling shares of the company. I didn't plan on announcing it this way, but your husband forced my hand." Her breath hitched. "He's saying you did this to ruin him, that you've hated him from the start." I closed my eyes. The truth was bitter. I never hated him, Caroline. I only hated the way he treated you and me. I wanted him to grow into the man you believed he was. But now his mask has slipped. In the background, I could hear Sheldon shouting, "Tell him he's finished. Tell him he's nothing but a bitter old man." Caroline whispered, "Dad, he's not himself. He's drinking." That night I sat in my study staring at old photographs. Caroline is a little girl on her first bike, her wedding day with tears in her eyes, Emma's birthday candles flickering in the dark. And I was right. That evening Caroline called me. Her voice was tight, almost trembling.
"Dad, Sheldon came home furious. He said you embarrassed him in front of the entire board. Is it true? Are you really his boss now?"
I knew he would drag Caroline down with him, maybe even Emma. And that was unbearable. A week later, Caroline invited me for dinner. I almost refused, sensing Sheldon's hand in the invitation, but her voice begged me to come. "Please, Dad, for Emma's sake, let's just eat together as a family." I agreed. The moment I stepped into their house, I knew it was a trap. Sheldon greeted me with a stiff smile that didn't reach his eyes. The table was set, wine poured, Emma tucked nervously between her parents. Dinner began in strained silence. Then Sheldon raised his glass. But now his mask has slipped. In the background, I could hear Sheldon shouting, "Tell him he's finished. Tell him he's nothing but a bitter old man," Caroline whispered. "Dad, he's not himself. He's drinking. Sometimes the past isn't finished with you." The room froze. Sheldon's smirk twitched. "You think you're clever, old man? You think sitting in that chair at work makes you powerful? At home, you're nothing. At this table, you're nothing. And soon, Caroline will see that too." Caroline gasped. Emma began to cry. And I finally realized that Sheldon wasn't just mocking me anymore. He was making a declaration. This wasn't just about business. It was about control over my daughter, over my granddaughter, over everything I had built. A week later, Caroline invited me for dinner. I almost refused, sensing Sheldon's hand in the invitation, but her voice begged me to come. "Please, Dad, for Emma's sake, let's just eat together as a family." I agreed. I placed my hand over hers. "It's all right, sweetheart," I whispered. But Caroline wasn't all right. Her lips parted as if to speak, but Sheldon cut her off. "Don't listen to him, Caroline," Sheldon snapped, his voice sharp enough to make Emma flinch. Dinner began in strained silence. Then Sheldon raised his glass. "To progress," he said loudly, "to leaving the past behind, and to men who know when their time is up." Caroline's hand trembled as she set down her fork. Emma looked at me with wide, fearful eyes. "Every bill you couldn't pay, every emergency, every time we needed a lifeline, it was Dad who stepped in." Sheldon's face darkened. "Don't you dare take his side." Her eyes filled with tears. "It's not about sides, it's about truth. You mock him, you belittle him, and yet you've been living off his generosity for years." The silence that followed was louder than shouting. Sheldon's jaw tightened, his pride wounded in front of the very family he claimed to command. I saw it then, the crack in Sheldon's armor. This wasn't just about business. It was about control, over my daughter, over my granddaughter, over everything I had built. And I knew then, the real battle was only beginning. Sheldon's hands balled into fists on the table, his knuckles white. He pushed his chair back with a screech. "Enough. I won't sit here and be insulted in my own home." But I leaned forward, my voice low and steady. "This isn't your home, Sheldon." I placed my hand over hers. "It's all right, sweetheart," I whispered. But Caroline wasn't all right. Her lips parted as if to speak, but Shelty cut her off. "Don't listen to him, Caroline," Shelty snapped, his voice sharp enough to make Emma flinch. Caroline walked me out to my car, her face pale, her hands shaking. "Dad," she whispered, "I don't know what to do. I love him, but he's not the man I thought he was." I placed my hands gently on her shoulders. "Sweetheart, you don't have to decide tonight." Sheldon's face darkened. "Don't you dare take his side." Her eyes filled with tears. "It's not about sides. It's about truth. You mock him, you belittle him, and yet you've been living off his generosity for years." The silence that followed was louder than shouting. Sheldon's jaw tightened, his pride wounded in front of the very family he claimed to command. I saw it then, the crack in Sheldon's armor. For years he had puffed himself up with arrogance, but beneath it was a man terrified of being exposed, terrified that without me he was nothing. Emma, bless her innocence, broke the silence with a whisper. "Mommy, why is Daddy so mean to Grandpa?" Caroline closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. Sheldon's hands balled into fists on the table, his knuckles white. If he couldn't win in the boardroom, he would try to destroy me elsewhere, and he started with whispers. By the end of the week, I heard from an old colleague at the firm. Sheldon had been spreading rumors that I was senile, unfit to lead, a relic clinging to power while the company withered. "Even the car you drive was bought with my money. Without me, you're standing on sand." Sheldon froze, his face a mask of fury. That night ended with slammed doors and Emma crying in her room. Caroline walked me out to my car, her face pale, her hands shaking. "Dad," she whispered, "I don't know what to do. I love him, but he's not the man I thought he was." I placed my hands gently on her shoulders. "Sweetheart, you don't have to decide tonight. But understand this, I will not let him drag you and Emma down with him. Not anymore. Unauthorized expenses, client dinners that were nothing but bar tabs, business trips that lined up perfectly with his gambling weekends in Vegas, funds redirected into side projects that never existed. I had kept quiet, waiting, watching, knowing his arrogance would blind him to the danger of leaving that trail behind. Now, as his rumors spread, I opened the file on my desk drawer, a thick binder of evidence, every receipt, every invoice, every false signature. Sheldon thought he knew everything, but the truth was, I knew more. That evening, Caroline called again, her voice strained. "Dad," Sheldon came home furious. "He said you're trying to smear his reputation. He says he's going to fight you, and he won't stop until you're out of his life and mine." The pain in her words cut deeper than his insults ever could. "Sweetheart," I said quietly, "I've never wanted to come between you, but you need to see him for what he is." She hesitated, then whispered, I think I already do." But her voice broke at the end, and I knew her heart was still tethered to him, even as his lies corroded everything around them. The next board meeting was unlike the last. Sheldon stormed in late, his tie crooked, his eyes bloodshot from too many sleepless nights and too much whiskey. He slammed his hand on the table. "This company is a joke! You let an old man take control, and now he's dragging us back into the Stone Age. We need fresh leadership. Me." The directors shifted uncomfortably. Some glanced at me, others at the documents I had already circulated that morning. I stood slowly, sliding the binder across the table toward Sheldon. "You want fresh leadership? Then explain these." He opened it, and his face drained of color. Pages of his own deceit stared back at him. Client dinners at Mirage Casino, personal flights billed as company expenses, false reports, embezzlement. I let each word fall like a hammer. "You mocked me for being old, Sheldon, but I'm old enough to know that paper doesn't lie." The board erupted in whispers. Sheldon's mouth opened, closed, then twisted into rage. "You set me up." "No," I said firmly. "You set yourself up. I just kept the receipts." The chairman of finance cleared his throat. "Sheldon Thompson, effective immediately. You are suspended pending investigation." Sheldon's chair screeched back as he leapt to his feet, his face crimson, his hands trembling. He pointed at me across the table. "This isn't over, old man. You may have ruined me here, but you just destroyed your own family." And in that moment I realized, the next battle wouldn't be in the boardroom. It would be at home. When men like Sheldon lose their grip on power, they don't surrender gracefully. They thrash, they claw, they burn whatever's left around them. And that's exactly what he did. By the next evening, Caroline called me again, not with questions, but with tears. "Dad," she whispered through the phone, her voice shaking, "he's furious. He says you turned Emma against him. He says you ruined his career. He smashed a glass against the wall tonight. I don't even recognize him anymore." I gripped the receiver, the weight of every father's nightmare pressing down on me. My daughter and granddaughter, caught in the storm of a man's pride. "Sweetheart," I said gently, "listen to me carefully. Pack a bag. Take Emma. Come to my house tonight. Don't argue with him. Don't explain. Just leave." There was silence on the line, then a trembling. "Okay, Dad." But Sheldon was already unraveling faster than I anticipated. An hour later, headlights swept across my driveway. Caroline stumbled out of her car with Emma clinging to her side, both of them pale, shaken. Behind them, Sheldon's car screeched to a halt. He slammed the door, storming toward us with wild eyes. "You think you can steal my wife? My daughter? My life?" he shouted, his voice ragged with rage. I stepped in front of Caroline and Emma, my voice calm but hard. "You've already lost those things, Sheldon. Not because I took them, but because you drove them away." Emma buried her face in her mother's dress. Caroline's eyes brimmed with tears, but she stood tall. "Sheldon, stop. Please, look at yourself. This isn't you." But it was him, the truest version of him, stripped of charm, stripped of pretense, nothing left but ego and fury. Neighbors' porch lights flickered on as voices rose in the night. Sheldon's hands trembled at his sides, as if he couldn't decide between shouting or striking. I held his gaze, unflinching. "You want to prove you're a man, Sheldon?" I said evenly. "Then start by taking responsibility for your own failures. Stop blaming me. Stop blaming Caroline. Stop hiding behind your pride." For a moment, his expression faltered, a crack of something raw, almost like fear. But then he shook his head violently, pointing a trembling finger at me. "This isn't over, old man. You think you can just replace me? You'll regret this, both of you." And with that, he spun on his heel, climbed into his car, and tore out of the driveway, tires screaming into the night. Caroline collapsed onto my porch steps, Emma in her arms. She looked up at me, her face streaked with tears. "Dad," she whispered, "I don't know if he's coming back, but if he does, I don't think I can stay with him. Not after tonight." I wrapped my arms around them both, my heart heavy yet resolute. "You don't have to decide now. Just know this. You and Emma are safe here, always." Emma sniffled, her little voice muffled against my shoulder. "Grandpa, can we stay forever?" I kissed the top of her head. "For as long as you need, sweetheart." But as I held them close, my phone buzzed again in my pocket. Another message. This one even shorter, even sharper. My blood ran cold. Sheldon wasn't finished. He was planning something bigger, something reckless, and this time, the damage might go beyond business and family. I barely slept that night. Sheldon's last message, "Tomorrow, everything ends," played on a loop in my mind. I paced the living room while Caroline dozed uneasily on the couch. Emma curled against her. Every creak of the house made me tense. Morning came, but it didn't bring peace. Caroline brewed coffee with trembling hands, her face pale, her eyes swollen from crying. Emma sat at the table quietly drawing, her usual chatter silenced by fear she couldn't fully name. Then came the sound, the sharp growl of an engine in the driveway. Sheldon's car. Caroline froze, her mug halfway to her lips. "Dad," she whispered. I put a hand on her shoulder. "Stay inside, both of you." I stepped out onto the porch, the cold air biting against my skin. Sheldon climbed out of the car, unshaven, his eyes bloodshot, his clothes wrinkled. He looked less like a proud executive and more like a man unraveling. "You ruined me," he spat, his voice hoarse. "The company, my family, everything. You took it all." I stood tall. "No, Sheldon, you lost it because you mocked, you lied, and you forgot that respect is earned, not demanded." He took a step forward, his hands trembling. "I'll make you pay. I'll make all of you pay." From behind me, Caroline's voice broke through. "Sheldon, stop. Look at yourself. This isn't love. This is destruction. You're tearing us apart." For just a heartbeat, he faltered. His eyes softened when they met hers, but then hardened again, burning with rage. Neighbors were watching now, shadows moving behind curtains. Emma's face peeked through the window, wide-eyed and terrified. "Go inside, Emma," I called gently, but firmly. "Stay with your mom," Sheldon sneered. "See? You're already turning her against me. You've poisoned them, old man." I took a deep breath, my voice steady as stone. "No, Sheldon. You did that yourself." I pulled out the folder I'd kept with me, the binder of evidence, the records of his lies and thefts. I dropped it on the hood of his car with a loud thud. Papers slid open, glaring proof of every choice he'd made. "This is who you are, Sheldon. Not a leader, not a provider, just a man so desperate for respect, he tried to steal it instead of earning it." Caroline stepped out onto the porch. "A man so desperate for respect, he tried to steal it instead of earning it." Her hands shaking, but her voice clear. "I'm done, Sheldon. I can't do this anymore. You've mocked my father, you've scared our daughter, and you've lost yourself. I won't let Emma grow up in this chaos." The words hit him harder than anything I could have said. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. He looked at Caroline, then at Emma's small face in the window. For the first time, I saw something other than arrogance or anger. I saw fear, and then defeat. Sheldon's shoulders slumped. He gathered the papers from the car hood with shaking hands, his eyes darting between us. "Finally," he whispered, almost to himself. "This isn't over." He climbed back into his car, the engine roaring to life. Tires screeched as he pulled away, disappearing down the street. Caroline collapsed into my arms, sobbing. Emma rushed out of the house, clinging to us both. But in my chest, dread still churned. Because men like Sheldon don't just walk away. They wait, they scheme. And his words echoed in my ears like a warning bell. "This isn't over." For 2 days we heard nothing. No calls, no messages, no sign of Sheldon. The quiet should have been a relief, but instead, it felt like standing in the eye of a hurricane. Calm on the surface, but I knew the storm hadn't passed. Caroline stayed at my house with Emma, trying to keep some normalcy. She cooked, she cleaned, she even laughed once or twice at Emma's silly jokes. But every sound outside made her stiffen. Every car that slowed in front of the house made her glance nervously at the window. As for me, I spent those nights at the kitchen table, papers spread before me, contracts, audits, letters from the board, all proving Sheldon's downfall was of his own making. If he tried to twist the story, I'd be ready, but deep down, I knew this wasn't just about the company anymore. Sheldon had nothing left to lose, and men with nothing left to lose are dangerous. On the third night, the sound came again, tires crunching on gravel, headlights slicing through the blinds. Caroline froze. Emma whispered, Mommy, is it Daddy? I rose from my chair, my pulse steady but hard. Stay here, I told them. Don't move. When I opened the front door, there he was, Sheldon, his clothes disheveled, his eyes red-rimmed, but his posture strangely calm. Too calm. He held nothing in his hands. But the look on his face told me this wasn't a visit for peace. You think you've beaten me, he said, his voice eerily level. You think you can take my wife, my daughter, my company, and leave me with nothing? I didn't flinch. No, Sheldon. I didn't take anything. You threw it away. Caroline's voice trembled from inside the house.
Sheldon, please, don't do this. But he ignored her, his eyes locked on me. You want to know what really eats me alive? It's not the company. It's not the money. It's the fact that my own family looks at you with respect, and at me with pity.
His voice cracked on the last word, and for the first time, I saw the boy under the man. The desperate need to be seen, to be valued. But it was buried under years of arrogance. I took a slow step forward. Sheldon, you still have a choice. You can walk away from this spiral. Get help. Be the husband Caroline deserves. Be the father Emma needs. Or you can keep fighting, keep burning bridges, until there's nothing left but ashes. For a long moment, he just stared at me. His chest heaved, his fists clenched, his jaw trembled. And then, he laughed. A hollow, bitter laugh. You don't get it, old man. I'd rather burn than bow. He turned sharply, storming back to his car. The engine roared, taillights glowing red as he sped off into the night. Caroline collapsed against the doorframe, tears spilling down her cheeks. Emma clung to her leg, whispering, Mommy, is Daddy coming back?